this work. What program is this? OBS, no? Nothing? Oh, maybe it's here. Yes. No? Okay, well, I heard clicking. I heard clicking. Let's see. Let's see, everybody. This is why you get your shit together before you start. Let's see. Let's see, everybody. It's working. I hear things. Alright, I'm going for it. Alright, everybody. So, as the title would suggest, this is about fear. This is all about fear. So, we're just going to jump right into it. So, you know, I was just doing kettlebell, right? Shout out to kettlebell. We love kettlebell around here, right? And something, the further I go now, the further I kind of view pretty much anything I'm doing in the viewing it from the standpoint of overcoming some sort of fear, especially if it's something I don't want to do. Who wants to do kettlebell? You know, I mean, people do kettlebell, and I enjoy doing kettlebell because it's a cool thing I could bring up in people's conversations. Hey, you know what I did? I did some kettlebell, and people are like, "Oh wow, what's that?" No, I would say most people know what a kettlebell is now. You know, it's kind of thoroughly saturated the zeitgeist out there in the world. So I feel like most people know what a kettlebell is. If you don't know what a kettlebell is, then look it up, my friends. Look it up. So anyways, we got any docs? How do we do these docs? Can I get a doc? Can I get a custom doc so I can see some chat? I'd like to see some chat while I'm doing a live. Okay. Anyways. So, kettlebell. Who enjoys doing kettlebell? I mean, no. People enjoy doing kettlebell. I enjoy doing kettlebell. But who's like, oh man, I'm looking forward to doing kettlebell? Maybe those people are out there. My point is, kettlebell is a means to an end, right? Oh, you want to get stronger and shit? Do some kettlebell. That's pretty much how it goes. And you know, it doesn't seem like you would need to frame something like that in the sense of overcoming a fear. Doing kettlebell, what does that have to do with fear? I'll tell you what it has to do with fear, folks. I'll tell you. You ready? It has to do with fear because if there is something connected to that emotionally that is maybe a fear of change. Maybe, oh, I got to add that to my list, which I sort of did because I got a little list here. It's all related to fear. First of all, how's it going? For what it's worth. You know, what's up? I'm not looking at the chat. The chat always throws me off. So I just try to record the video and maybe later look at the chat. You know, because it does throw me off because I'll get in a train of thought and someone will be like, yeah, I remember that time I ate pretzels. And I'm like, what? And I'll be thinking about eating pretzels. I've only been eating fruit for the past 2 weeks. That's been interesting. That's been very interesting. Just eating fruit. I felt great. Just eating fruit. Who knew? Anyways, back to fear. Okay, so what does fear have to do with kettlebells? Well, I'll tell you what it has to do with kettlebells. It has to do with kettlebells because if there is something emotionally charged in your psyche that is standing in the way of you doing kettlebells, then it is a fucking fear. How about that? Because, like the title would suggest, we're talking about limitations here. We're talking about limitation mindset. And what is a limitation mindset? Fear. There's a woman, Nita. I don't know her other name. It starts with an S. I'll put a link to the video in the description. I wonder how many times that's been said in the history of the internet. I'll put a link in the description of the video. Video is, it's not like videos have always been around the internet, but just that phrase, I feel like it's been said so many times. Oh yeah, I'll put a link in the description of the video. So many times. Anyways, she has these videos that I feel are great videos discussing the root chakra. And she kind of frames it in the sense of 4 fears related to the root chakra. And the 4 fears are, and also there's kind of like the flip side is the honors, right? So it's not just, let's see if I can do this while I'm talking. I'm getting this turban game, turban game, getting the turban game, you know what I'm saying? Turban game. So let's see if I can do this while I'm talking. Anyways, so, see, I'm already, I just started, I'm already off track from what I was saying. Oh, Nita and her videos. Okay. So, she has these videos, and she's talking about Muladhara, the root chakra, right? Well, you don't know. You don't know. You haven't seen these videos. I'm telling you about these videos, right? So, I feel like I'm like a mom now. Oh yeah, Pa, she's in a mom. You didn't hear? Yeah, he's all about the mom life. Yeah, a mommy. Well, it's hot mommies. Yo, what's up, hot mommies? Hot mommies. Hot mommies. Is that offensive to the moms out there? If you're a mom and you find that offensive, please give me a call at 860-994-942-612. That is not an actual phone number, if you couldn't guess. Anyways, let's get back to Nita and her videos. So, Nita is talking about how to tie a turban. And while she's talking about how to tie a turban, she says that there are 4 fears related to your root chakra. See, you gotta come out the back, you know what I'm saying? We out here. We out here, folks. Yeah, that'll do. That'll do, donkey. That'll do. Okay. Back to Nita and her videos. I can only imagine someone was just like, get to the videos. Like, fuck this. I'm out of here. Sorry, a turban now. I'm out of here. I don't have time for this. Anywho, I don't know, wearing a turban just feels right. It feels good. My crown tingles with excitement. So Nita in the videos. I know, folks. This is the fun of doing lives. This is the excitement. You don't get this from the scripted, pre-recorded episodes. No, you don't. You get this live, baby, live. All right, so she's talking about these 4 fears related to the Muladhara, which is the root chakra. And they are fear of your parents, fear of work, fear of support, and fear of your body. Now, we could probably get into all of those, but we're not. I'm not going to do that, at least not in this video. There's a few main ones off of that I was going to get into personally, because that's actually been a very interesting reflection to think about, and also on the flip side, honor those things. Make sure you're honoring your parents, honoring your work, honoring your support, and honoring your body. So, without further ado, let's just talk about fear of our parents, because I think that ties into the fear of ourselves, which we'll get to next. So, fear of our parents. Okay. Now, when I'm saying honor your parents, there's many different kind of ways we can look at the term honor. And actually, while we're having this discussion, can I do this? I wish I got to figure out how to do the shit where you can, I could be showing this while I'm looking up the definition of honor. But anyways, so, when you hear the term honor, a lot of things come to mind. And, even this definition doesn't, I don't think necessarily hits it on the head. It says high respect, great esteem. Or an adherence to what is right or to a conventional standard of conduct or regard with great respect. They honor their parents in all they did. But that's not really how I'm looking at it for our purposes. The way I'm looking at it, mon chers, is mon cheries, mon cheries and mon chers. Those mon chers. Oh, you mon chers. Are you a mon cher? Mon cher. Mon chéri, mon cher, mon chers. What I want to talk about is just the honoring of where you came from. That, I think, is a better way of looking at to honor your parents, and also the fear of your parents. So before we get into the honor piece of it, let's talk about fear of our parents. Okay, we've all had parents, unless you're an orphan, which shout out to you for being an orphan and owning that title. I don't know how many orphans call themselves orphans, or if there's another term these days. Like, I was parentally declined. You think I'm making jokes, which I sort of am, but I also am curious. So, I don't know, parentally declined is the term for orphans now. Orphans just seem so, like, what is this, Annie? Jeez, orphans. Just orphan. What a word. Orphan. Like, it's a very strange looking word. Orphan. ORPHANS. Orphan. Anyways, so, we've all had or have parents, right? And we all have a mixture of relationships with those parents, yes? And this is where it gets tricky and sticky and icky and sicky, and some girl named Vicky with a dickie. The overalls. Anyways. So this is where it gets difficult, because we could look at our parents as like, they're really smart, but let's, for the sake of what we're talking about right now, let's just look at all of our parents as idiots. Let's just call it what it is. Yeah, they could have been, they went to college, they have a master's, maybe they have a doctorate, maybe they did this, maybe they did that. But let's just say, in terms of knowing what's best for a child, they were an idiot. Right? Let's just start there. Because they were. Because the person before them who raised them, they were an idiot. And, going back further and further, everyone's an idiot. Everyone's an idiot. That's why, if you want to humble yourself in life, if you want to put yourself at the ringer, just be a parent. It's just, if you really just want to fuck with yourself, and just, you can fucking hit all the threes in the game. And then later, the niggas be like, that free throw you missed? Oh, come on. I missed that free throw when I was in 4th grade. Oh, man. I don't care about the 80-point games. I care about that one free throw. Mom and dad. You didn't even bring up that free throw. Like, that free throw didn't even count in your score book. And this is it. I mean, first of all, children are an ego maniacs. Let's call it what it is, right? This is what the world does to us. It teaches us, to be like, hey, you piece of shit. This is what the world ingrains in us, just crying out. It's like, hey, look at me. Attention. And so just ideally, you want children to grow out of that. And they're not always that egomaniacal person. And they understand compassion and empathy, and not just always seeking attention for their own benefit, right? So, we have a certain relationship with our parents through all these years. Oh, I never plugged in my thing. How am I doing? Says I'm doing good. I should probably plug in my thing now. Because we want live streaming to happen greatly, in a good way. Hold on. Wait, hold on. You always gotta plug in the RJ45, you know what I'm saying, y'all? Y'all computer niggas know what I'm talking about. That ORJ45, that Cat 45 cable. Don't ask me why I'm in an accent now, but I just am, okay? When I'm talking about my tech things, okay? Gotta plug that cable in from the router, y'all heard? All right. So, our parents just, they were passed on shitty information about raising children, right? And just keeps on going on down the line. And this is where we talk about breaking generational curses and shit like that. This is where that comes into play, is just how your parents raised you. And, maybe there was good, maybe there was bad, maybe it was majority terrible in your mind, maybe it was majority great in your mind, maybe even though majority of the time it was great, maybe the terrible was really terrible, or maybe the majority of the time was pretty shitty, but, there were some really bright moments all over the spectrum for no matter what your relationship with your mother, your father, them individually and collectively. And, if you got anything beyond that, if you were raised by a grandmother, right, you got to have many different dynamics in terms of parents and who raised you, right, and many different relationship with those dynamics. What becomes difficult is reconciling where you came from, right, as you get older, recognizing that, for no matter what you may want to have happened, these are the two people genetically and in an occult way you came from. And some occultist, I'm on the fence, who knows, would say that you chose those parents. Now, you can beg to disagree. That's not the reason why we're here. But the point is, you came from those two people. And there is something about that. Like, you can't, even if, like, your hometown you were raised in had nothing for you, was just backwards, just, like, never was just, it just wasn't anything that vibrated with you, right? In the highest way. You're like, oh, man, as soon as I can, I'm out of here. And you left. Even though that town, maybe in your mind, has a certain, like, stain on it, where it's not, maybe not even a stain, but just a certain earmark on it in your mind, you still have to honor where you came from. You still came from there. As much as, we could be like, I came from that shitty town or that shitty place. Maybe that shitty place helped you determine what you wanted in life, because it wasn't there. And let's say if it was there, maybe you would never have left. And maybe you would have never found out more about yourself if you had stayed in that town, if had the thing that you wanted. So sometimes that's helpful too in life. Being in an experience or a place or a circumstance where you're like, nope, this is not it for me. Fuck this, right? Because then you're like, oh, well, where would I rather be right now? What would I rather be doing? Why aren't I doing those things? Why am I here? Why do I have to do this? In what way has my life gone where I have to do this stupid thing right now? How have I manifested this in my life? I kind of look at it like that. And, just with our parents, we can just be always just kind of like, oh, man, just looking at our parents in the worst way, right? In their worst aspects, right? And this is based on the dynamic we've have with them, which is going to be in a certain way. And as a whole, gets on the whole thing about mind control, which I said in the previous video about mind control. Number one mind controllers out there in your life to start your life are your parents, like, for sure. Like, especially your mom. If your mom's in your picture. In your picture? Is your mom in your picture? Hey, is your mom in your picture? Hey, I asked you if your mom is in your picture. If your mom's in your picture, she was 9,000% a powerful mind controller. Let's just deal with it, okay? Let's just deal with it. So, over time as we get older, we start to develop fears related to our parents because, like, oh no, am I going to be like my mother, who always used to sniff glue on the balcony of the Amtrak station in Albuquerque, New Mexico? Yeah, that's somebody's mother right now. Y'all are laughing. Yeah, real funny. Someone's mother right now is doing that. And I don't even know if they have balconies on the Amtrak station in Albuquerque, New Mexico, but they should. So if people want to sniff glue, they have a place to do it. How about that, folks? Anyways, so, we begin to have this train of thoughts, especially, I feel like there's kind of a certain cycle that people go through related to their parents that I think is healthy, where it's like, you're raised by your parents in some way, shape, or form, and then you're like, oh, fuck all that shit, right? It's like the college phase, fuck all that shit. And then maybe like, you soften up, maybe in your mid-20s, and then you're like, they did have some good points. And then, assuming that your relationship with your parents was never something that was like awful and devastating and like has, lots of trauma involved, it just, it was what it was, you should be like, you know what? Yeah, I should honor them more and spend more time with them and things like that. And you kind of come back to the middle and you're like, yeah, I don't know about that shit they were talking about, but they did make some good points about this. Like, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, they're pretty cool. They make some good jokes. Like, all right, and every once in a while they give me food. I'm all for that. So it just becomes something you start kind of going through about just your relationship with your parents, and it all depends on where you are, because again, people have various relationships with their parents, but there is something about you have to find out some way where you can honor them. And again, it doesn't mean in these videos I mentioned that were hyped up for 17 minutes on this video before they were even discussed. That's how important they are. In those videos, like, man, you'd have to G-check some people. Should have G-check them, because people are like, okay, all right, I hear you saying honor your parents, but what if my like dad or mom was they're like fighting and beating each other up, like I'm supposed to honor that? And she's like, no, you dummy. She should have said it, and that was her tone, because I see what people do now, like in many situations, studying what's called dark psychology. I'm just gonna say this: a lot of people emotionally manipulate all the time. I'm really starting to become hip to it. Things I'll say, to get like, a certain reaction out of people, and things I'll just like, that's interesting that they threw that in there. Like, I see what they're doing. So I'm just telling y'all, you don't need to watch that shit. I feel like most of y'all doing that unconsciously, because you're not aware of your unconscious and subconscious content, and it just slips out all these emotional manipulations. Like, goddamn, I had a situation recently with this woman who, I don't know, people are your friends until they're not. Life is wild. Where it's just like, I went camping with this person, and it was all cool, and then it was just like 2 days after camping, it was like just absurdity. Like, I didn't even respond, because listen, I have this thing now where it's like, you gotta communicate to me in a certain way for me to address you. Like, just real talk. Like, if someone's yelling at me, why do I need to respond to them? There's nothing that says I need to respond to them. This is a conversation me and Ann have all the time. We get so impressed with people being mad and upset and all this sort of stuff. There's no reason you have to respond to them. Just because someone's whiling, okay, great. That sounds like an over there issue. I can be silent. And that's the thing they don't tell you in humanity school, in spiritual being school. You can just not respond to shit. And this isn't like, oh, like creditors are calling me, or like, some responsibility that I'm responding to. This is like, well, you said that was your choice. This is my choice, and I'm not responding, because why do I need to respond to that? But it's like, certain shit is so self-evident that it's like, I don't even need to respond to it. It speaks for itself. And that's how I felt in this situation, where at first I started to respond, and I was like, oh yeah, no, yeah, I just need to hold my responses, because this is not gonna go the way that I would think it would go. I mean, it started just way left, and then I was just like, oh, My response isn't only making lefterness. We're only going further left from my added response. I'm, oh, okay. So now, me being a scientist at all, an experimenter of life, I'm like, oh, okay, well, I won't say anything now. I'll just see what happens. And that's it. And again, there's nothing that says, especially again, people are saying ludicrous things, absurd things to you. There's nothing that says you ever need to respond to them. I mean that in all sincerity. It's like there's like this myth bantied about in society that it's like, oh, if someone's like screaming at you, you need to scream back, or you need to yell back, or you need to say this, you need to say that. No, you don't. There's nothing that says that. Now, usually egotistically, we want to scream back. We want to fight back. And that's usually what people want in those situations. They want a back and forth. That's how I felt in this situation. Oh, I was like, oh, this person wants a back and forth, and I'm not going to give it to them. Because it's like, we're way past me justifying a need to do a back and forth. Like, if it started on like level 4, I would have engaged more on a back and forth. But we started on level 8.6 and went higher. I was like, no, we're done here. We were done before we really even began. So, not necessarily sure I got on that, but it's an important topic for sure. So let's get back to our parents, shall we? So, our parents are in need of honor. Not that they're in need of honor, but when we honor them, we honor where we came from. And Nita was saying that, your whole skeletal system is from your parents. I mean, just break it down to brass tacks, as they say. You are from your parents, sperm and, egg. You're from their genetic material. I mean, of the cosmos also, but more directly from them. So, I don't know. There's got to be some study, or someone needs to do this study, where people who shit talk their hometown and their parents and how their life turns out, and people if they had a hard upbringing, difficult time with their parents, they still were like, I still learned a lot from these parents, blah, blah, blah. It's like, that town didn't have everything I wanted, but, I still, found my opportunities and, taught me what I really did want in life. I wanted to be a pastry chef and work in Belgium, or whatever the fuck. Oh, I know how I got onto that whole thing. Let's get back to talking about our parents. No, but specifically, what was I talking about? I don't know. Oh, Nita and the videos and honoring our parents. I believe we were going down the rabbit hole of honoring our parents. Oh, and the G-checking. Okay. So she G-checked them, getting back to the G-checking, because someone's like, my mom got hit by my dad, which I'm not downplaying, but this dude was being whiny almost. This is funny. Yeah, I know how that sounds. But, he's kind of doing a thing where it's just like, I don't know, just ask the question. He was trying to prove her wrong. Even in this situation, that's how I felt. That's all. So anyways, he was like, yeah, but what if this parent was doing this bad thing, And she made a good point. This is a very good point when I heard this. It's not even related to fear, but she was like, that's her lesson, not yours. And it's hard to hear that. It really is, especially if you've witnessed that sort of thing in your life and had to deal with that from, one of your parents doing that to another parent and talking about fear and all that sort of stuff. But what else could it be? That is that person's lesson and their life. That is not your lesson. And what you extract out of that, you can get a lesson. What you learn from that can be a lesson. But it's not your lesson. It's their lesson. So he said some shit about how life talks to us in images and movies. And it's just, you never watch a movie where you highly identify with the characters. You're like, oh man, that that woman reminds me of my aunt. Or like, oh man, that reminds me when I was 12. Like, oh, I used to do the same thing, right? This is the mythology part of life. These characters, these stories, stories are lessons. They taught us not only a metaphysical lesson, in these mythological tales, but they also taught us some sort of thing about like, yeah, don't be rude to old women because they might turn to be a powerful witch and then turn you into some shit, just like, yeah, I know she's ugly and she's some old croon. She's Simone Croon, but just be cool with her, because she might actually be some powerful witch and she might take offense to that. So yeah, you might want to do that. So when looking at what she was talking about with like that's your parents' lesson, that is true, and it's a hard thing for us to hear. It's a very hard thing for us to hear, but it's the truth. Your lesson may be related to seeing that. Your lesson may be related to processing and dealing with that. Your lesson may become in the far way of like becoming an advocate, right? And also the lesson of, oh, don't tolerate that shit from a partner, and also the lesson of don't do that to a partner. Lessons can go both ways. We think of lessons kind of like more in the positive sense, but like negative lessons, I guess you could call them, where it's like, oh, I don't want that outcome, or oh, that person got that outcome and they did that. That's not the outcome I want. Those are the ones that usually are very palpable and really stick. So those aren't your lessons, and honoring where you came from. She said also about, just every morning mentally touching the feet of your parents and just not being afraid of where you come from. Because if you're afraid of where you come from, specifically you're afraid from where you come from with your parents, right, and broadly with your family, like, oh, my family is all like this, I don't want to end up like this, and that fear, what do you have, no choice? What do you have, no control over your mind? Not the good kind of mind control? You've been mind controlled by them and you haven't broken out of it? Well, then congratulations. You played yourself. We need to bring that back. Congratulations, you played yourself because you have no mind control, no self-control, no control of your own mind, and no control of your own chakras. Because what's supposed to happen, what ideally should happen, mon chers, is you grow up in a certain environment, you leave the environments for various reasons, you go out to the world, and you're like, oh, that environment had unhealthy, toxic behaviors? No shit. Huh, it was these things? Oh, well, I don't think I should do those anymore. Okay, we're going to clear out these toxic behaviors that, were taught to me and trained me for my parental and family environment. And then, you can still relate to your family, still talk with your family, engage with your family, depending on the level of toxicity they have. If they're raging alcoholics and you've gotten over your alcoholism and they're still raging alcoholics, you have to have some limited interactions with them, for your own balance. So, it becomes this fear of being like them. But again, where's your self-control? Where's your mind control? The good mind control, your mind control, your self-mind control, your self-feeling control. Where is it? Tell me. Share with me. Tell me where your self-mind control is, mon cher. Please tell me. Please share with the class. Get it? Mon cher. Mon cher, share. Thanks, mon cher, for your share. Oh, mon cher. Mon cher. Now, which one did I say? Was it mon cher or mon cher? Good question. So, this fear of our parents. Hold on. So, this fear of our parents. it's you know, when we, or I would say when I've come back to center on myself, I'm like, well, I've already done many things I know for a fact my parents have not done, have not even thought about doing, not interested in doing. So for me, it was just, I don't know, I've not really had a fear of becoming my parents, you know. That's why, you know, listen, if you want to piss off a woman, right? I mean, I guess it could be a woman dating a woman in this thing, but I feel like, I don't know, if it's a man saying this, it just extra has extra sting, you know. Calling a woman like you're just like your mother. There's a reason why that's like one of the most like, yo, are you trying to get your fucking dick castrated? I was watching something earlier that said that. What was it? Oh, it was never mind. I don't need to get into it, but it was funny. It was a funny thing involving castration, which is hilarious. One of the top 5 most hilarious topics. Okay, it goes castration. Squirrels. Squirrels are hilarious. Storage units. Friendlies. And lastly, most importantly, microphones. Hilarious. So, let's get back to it. So, you have this fear of your parents. Maybe you don't. But I would probe deep to see if you do, because I'm sure you do. I'm sure there's something that you look at, you know, like for example, if your father wasn't there, you know, and maybe you go on and you're like, I want to raise a family, but I don't want to be a nigga who's not there. You know, you feel like, oh, that could be me. I could turn into that dude who's just not there, who just like, you know, has a baby and then he's like, oh, I'm going for cigarettes. You know, that could be the fear. You know, your fear could be like, oh, my mother was so manipulative and so this. Fear of becoming that. Fear of doing that. And you can kind of see, you know, for me, I realized this thing about attracting volatile mommies. You know, and this sort of archetype of the volatile mommy, and it's something that I recognize through many different women, and most recently a woman who I had been engaging with and talking to. I was like, oh shit, this is an archetype of women that I attract. And I'm like, oh, what's this say about my mindset? I don't know. Still working on that one, but I recognize that there's definitely a pattern, even with their fucking the first letters of their first and last name. It's like M's and L's. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, even the letters, because I had like written it down like in some journal. I was going through it recently, just all these past girlfriends, right? And like, and usually when I write in my journal, I just put people initials, and then I had put someone's wrong last name initial, and I corrected it, and I was like, wait a minute, and it was just like, yeah, it was just like, oh, man, it was all these L's and M's, and I was like, this is so weird, huh? This is very weird. And yeah, if you're watching this and you're an L and M, I think you're kind of a volatile mommy. I'm just saying. I think you're that archetype. Because, yeah, just throwing that out there. Hey, do your own work. What my research has gathered about these volatile mommy experiments I was doing, apparently. So, the point being, I realized that it was a connection to my own mother, right? And, you know, probably the more deeper I go with that, probably I will uncover some sort of fear related to that, you know, in terms of the women I was attracting. Even there was a woman who I'd like worked on this project for this job I had once, and I felt like, you know, we sort of hit it off, and you know, I still see her out here. Doesn't look like she's dating anybody. I was like, oh yeah, I should hit her up. And then first I was like, wait, her name starts with an M. I was like, okay, that's strike one. Then I thought about interactions I had with her, and man, I rarely will lean on stereotypes, but this woman, she was like the stereotypical of like a spicy Latina woman, right? And she was cool. She was a sweetheart, but man, she had some moments where I was just like, what? And usually I don't get riled up by people too hard, but this one, I was like, oh my goodness, she's being really ridiculous right now. Just really ridiculous. And so I was like, yeah, that's at least 2 strikes. And so I was like, I don't know, there's probably a 3rd strike in there. And, maybe it is a certain type of archetype of women that I'm attracted to. And this is the thing about like our parents and having to understand and reconcile their relationship with our parents, because unknowingly, if we're unclear about the archetype that our kind of parents are, whether it was like deadbeat daddy, or mom had lots of boyfriends, or dad never stuck up to mom, or mom was the mean one and dad tried to like make things better, or everything was cool but maybe they fought behind closed doors about money. Just there'd be so many different archetypes that one's parents together and individually can play out. And then when we have relationships with both sexes, right? And relationships with our relationship with ourselves, it'll be through the lens of their archetypes, right? Just like I was saying, the someone who is going to be a father and their father wasn't there. How do they handle that? How do they reconcile that in their minds? Some people, it's easier. Sometimes they're like, well, I'm going to be the person who was there when there was nobody there. They fully go the other way, like hard. I saw a video of it earlier, and it was so beautiful. This dude, he's, is like, oh, like, his wife had a video of like, oh, the love of my life is being the dad he never had, sort of thing. And that's why it's like kind of weird when you really think about that sort of thing, because it's like the alchemy of it, because it's like, you could say that's, if you're in that situation, you didn't have a father there, and then you're raising a child as a father, you get a chance to kind of like not act it out in another way, but just you can just, what's that word I'm looking for? You can, kind of just give yourself that catharsis with it that maybe you're holding on to. And hopefully by being a parent, you can release the not being there parts and the loss and the pain that is related to that, because you are there for somebody, and just at the very least, the scale is even now. We're 0-0. We're all tied up, and at the same time, having empathy for our father. That's what people don't want to do. They don't want to have empathy for our parents, for what our parents went through. That's why, shout out to Brother Pag. He was talking about like his parents, and thinking about when they had him, which I think was like the early 20s, or his father was like 19 or something. And he's like, I think about how I was at that age, like, and their parents, and just having empathy for our parents, for their lives and how they got to that point. And sometimes it wasn't always pretty, and sometimes it wasn't always comfortable, and sometimes there was some heartache, there was some challenges, and just having empathy and giving space and grace to our parents, and, not looking at them, which we can when we're younger at times, with just so much like they can do no wrong. They are in the lab like the rest of us, right? They are figuring this thing out like the rest of us. And having children is a very kind of either, I feel like you decelerate quickly raising children in terms of like dealing with life in the world, or you accelerate, where you figure out even a faster way, not even faster in terms of time, faster in terms of just your spitting speed, faster in terms of your just way of just, dealing with the torque that is reality. Reality puts a certain torque on you that you kind of have to keep balanced, right? Because you get too much torque, I feel like that's when you get stressed and you die. When life has just torqued you out, just twisted you so much where it's just like, I can't even breathe. I've been torqued out. So our parents, or parenting, is like a powerful way that, you can really just I'm like, damn, talking about initiation. That is an initiation, folks. So, bringing it back to the central topic, which is fear, we have this relationship with our parents in our mind, this mental emotion relationship, and the fear that comes with thinking, believing, feeling, observing, being aware of the possibility that we could become our parents, right? But again, don't we have our own choices? Aren't we making our own choices? If we're not, then yes, if we're just gonna like ride the wave of the DNA and be like, oh Lordy, the DNA took me away, and I just like my daddy was an axe murderer, I just couldn't help but murder people with axes. All right, well, okay, buddy. But for the rest of us, we gotta have some culpability. We gotta have some accountability with our actions, and being aware of how our parents are, that can help us be aware of who we are. And hopefully we're already aware of who we are, and then we can understand how that is in relation to our parents, and then we can go get 2-for-1 appetizers at Applebee's. How is Applebee's still open, folks? I just really have that question. How are they still open? How are stacks still a thing? I went to the grocery store. Stacks are still there? Pringles should have sued them years ago. Secondly, I just don't understand. Stacks. Just come on, stay in your lane, Lay's. Just why are we going over here? We don't need to do all that. No one wants stacks from Lay's. Who said that? No one said that. Jesus. Okay, so we have a fear of our parents, folks. And this fear of our parents is very existential. It's very deep. It's very deep-seated. And it goes beyond our conscious awareness at times. And that's why you need to dredge it up and look the fuck at it and be aware of it. Because especially your root chakra will be all fucked up if you don't. Root chakra will be all imbalanced because you haven't honored where you came from. And again, this honor doesn't mean you need to worship it as the honor. Doesn't mean you fucking be like, oh yeah, they were a good person, whether beating your mother or berating your father or beating your father, or left you or abandoned you. Doesn't mean you need to justify any shitty thing they did. You just need to recognize that there is a lesson for you, and they had a lesson, and that's their lesson. Now, you're a part of their lesson, we understand this, but that's their lesson. And what you do with that lesson is the alchemy in your life. And that's all fear really is. It's an opportunity to do some alchemy. Every time you have that moment where you're like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. That's just alchemy, just in a different form. That's just alchemy being like, yo, man, let's do this. And that's a powerful way to look at those moments where we feel hesitant, where we feel procrastination. And it's just fear in another form. Fear in another form. And if you look at fear in another form, it's easier to smile at it. When I had these moments, I was at this event, and I had a thing, you write down some things, and you say some nice thing to yourself in a rap-like song, and I wasn't going to go. And everybody was very encouraging, and I went. And I always had those moments where I'm like, oh, I'm not going to go, and then I smile at the fear, which is a phrase from Chogyam Trungpa, which I feel is one of the most important phrases one can remember, is just smile at fear. What else are you going to do? You're going to cower to fear? You're going to look at fear and be like, oh, fear, don't hit me. Ah! No, fuck fear. Fear is just a part of one's mind that is activated. Just like, certain genes in our minds can be activated and turned on and off, fear is no different. Because the more you get used to challenging your own fear, challenging your own moments of, I don't know, whatever the fuck you want to call it, moments of, well, I could not do that and be fine. Like, for example, and it's funny that my extreme aversion to this makes me want to do it. So keep that in mind. Whitewater rafting. There's nothing about whitewater rafting that has me ever wanting to do it. But in that same regard, I want to do whitewater rafting because I don't want to be like, I'm afraid of white. I don't want to be like, oh, I can't do whitewater rafting. No, I don't have to go in there and do fucking class 9 rapids or whatever the fuck. I just do some gentle rapids. But the point is, I don't want that to be a thing in my mind, especially that, like, really there's nothing else in terms of, like, I don't know, adventure things that, like, given the right training and environments that I wouldn't do. You know, like, I would go skydiving. I'm not kind of, like, interested. But if, like, my best friend said, hey, I'm going skydiving for my birthday, do you want to come, or you're coming with me, or what do you think, or I would go. But I'm not planning a whole skydiving thing. I have no interest in it, but I would do that. But whitewater rafting, someone could be like, yo, it's down the streets. I paid for everything. There's no way you can drown. And there's going to be all these hot black women there. And there's going to be a party afterwards with a DJ with all these women and a hotel connected to the club. And all you can eat's Indian food. They could say all that and be like, I don't know about all that. And it's like, what are the rapids again? I just completely everything else. I'd be like, yeah, but what class were those rapids? It's like, it's actually just a spring. It's just it's a hot spring. Like, ooh, I don't know. So, going further, back to fear. So I had this fear of our parents. And I feel like I've said that so many times. We have this fear of our parents. And that's related to, drumroll please, blah, 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 fear of ourself. Right? What are we going to become? What are we? I'm a piece of shit. Right? We have all these fears about ourselves. And these fears can be related to our parents, but also could just be related to independence of our parents and family. It's like, oh, my family is, oh, they're all this, but it's like over here, I'm like a, whatever. I like red M&Ms, and all my family likes green. I'm a freak. What have I become? You know, it could be some shit like that. Or something deeper. Like, you know, my parents are alcoholics, and I struggle not drinking as well. That's real shit. And again, look in the archetype. If you see a certain archetype, the archetype's in your mind as just a viable option. It's like, well, this is what you do when you have a family. You drink yourself silly. That's what I saw growing up. No, this is not what you do with the family. And this is where it's like, gets real interesting, where if like someone has a partner who comes from a very dysfunctional, toxic family, and their partner they meet is just from a completely normal, well-to-do, functional family, like look at them like, what? Y'all have dinner without yelling at each other? Huh. Well, that's something. You know, it becomes just so absurd because that's what they're used to. And kind of the absence of that, even if they could be like, that's not good, the opposite of that is just feels strange, seems strange. You know, I always use the example of a boy who's raised a dog. True story. Very interesting book. I read it in grad school. And it's all these stories about like these extreme cases that this therapist had to deal with and consult on and shit like that. And one of them was a boy who was raised as a dog in a crate and all that shit. Very sad. Anyways, that was not the story I'm going to reference. The story I'm going to reference was this young child who came from a very chaotic household. And he got taken out of that household and put into a much better, balanced, peaceful household. I believe he was like fully adopted or foster parents, whatever. So, as it goes on, child enrolls in school, and they start noticing that this child is just like creating all these problems, and they're really just confused. It's like, why are they creating all these problems? Like, this place is like what? Here? Like, this place is chill. Like, there's 5 different types of fucking cereal to eat at any moment. It's like, what? Why is he wilding? And they just didn't understand. And what they came to realize was, I'm not saying that a good environment child is just because they have great cereal, but by the metrics of a good environment for a child, it was a good environment for a child, right? And much less chaotic and traumatic and abusive than the previous place. So what they came to understand was the child was so used to chaos and absurdity and just wild things happening that when in the absence of those, they're like, well, there's a problem. We need to cause some chaos. Let's break some lamps. Let's do some shit. We need to get some chaos going. Like, there's a problem here. What the fuck is going on? What's wrong with these people? They aren't yelling at each other. Again, it's like, what? They're not yelling at each other? Like, what the fuck is wrong with them? They need to be yelling. That's what I'm used to. And this is the thing. That's what they're used to. So that's the archetype. That's the software that's been imprinted in their brain, is that this is normal. You know, daddy yelling at mommy and mommy yelling back. That's normal. Whether it's feels good and looks good, that's a different thing, because it's been kind of laid out as normal, because it's just, this is what's happening. There's no other, it's not like, many times can a child, get like, oh, okay, well, this is like, they get to try households, like, oh, this is like, oh, this family eats dinner at 6, and like, then they read to each other, and then they play craft, and they make crafts together. Oh, okay. And like, oh, this household, they yell at each other a lot. Oh yeah. It's like they kind of just get a huge sampling of one style of parenting and just dealing with children and just dealing interpersonally, right? It's got a very fixed view. It's not a broad view, right? So again, going back to the partner, right? You get to see another family, and especially if you get close with that family, you're like, oh wow, okay. You start to see like, oh man, that shit was even more fucked up. My family's even more fucked up than I realized now that I see like a more balanced familial relationships and more balanced ways of relating to people in a family. Healthier ways, non-toxic ways, these things. So, honeydew. So, this fear around our parents. Hopefully, you kind of like yo-yo out, kind of come back in, and you're like, all right, well, I'm making my own choices. You know what I'm saying? And, I'm not my parents. Logically, you could state that, because it's like, I'm literally not a clone of my parents. I came from my parents, but I'm not a clone of them. And also, it's like, if I'm making my own choices, then how could I be my parents? My mindset, like, I just one of these days, I'm going to just talk to my parents about all the books I read and just see their reaction, because it's like, they probably have not even heard of a thing that could be in a book that I'm reading that's on these topics. That's how I feel. Maybe not. This is why you ask questions. But yeah, so I feel very confident that I've thought thoughts that my parents definitely have never thought before about reality, existence, and all those sorts of things. And also I had to recognize that because of how I was raised, that led me to the point where I'm able to read all these books and think all these thoughts that they haven't thought before, and that's a funny another way of looking at it, and not even going even further than that. So that's where the honor comes from. Whoever's watching this right now, whoever sees this, you got to a point in your life from your parents to somehow get to this video, right? And if you find this video helpful, great. If not, great. But through all that, it led you to this point. And that's a fascinating thing. And, it's just very cool just how our journeys work and how our journeys and connections with people work and how they'll lead in certain ways. And maybe it's like, oh, I'm not going to click on this video because that guy looks like my dad. Or I am going to click on this video because this guy looks like my mom. Or whatever. The twists and turns of it kind of lead us to where we need to go and where we need to end up and where we need to be doing the occult work and the spiritual work and just further pursuing our goals. And fear is the only thing that really gets in the way of that, because it's our limitation. That's another word for limitation. Fear. What else could be? What else is it? Name me one thing you want to do in your life that can be reframed in terms of fear. Probably most things. So we look at the fear. I said we look at the fear here. I said we look at the fear. I said the fear here. We're looking at the fear. To answer your question, only do whatever the fuck you want to do. See, this is the best thing that I've learned from studying occult things, right, and working on my occult mindset, is that you can do whatever you want, right? If you feel eating a vegan diet while also snorkeling, while also, massaging your left butt cheek is your path to enlightenment, and you truly know and feel that, go get it. Get it. All right? Don't ask me. You're the experimenter. Don't ever ask me, should we? You, what are you doing? You tell me. Should I eat honeydew as like the number one way to cure my gout? I don't know. Find out. And that's the mindset that's been helpful for me. Find out. You find out. You tell me. I only ate honeydew for a whole month, and actually, compared to when I only ate cucumbers for a whole month, it actually helped me with my psychic abilities. I'd love to hear about that. Maybe I'll try it too. But you are the, wait for it, experimenter. You, no one else. Well, everyone else is, but that's why asking should. There's probably lots of things that if the occultist community found out I'm doing, they'd be like, ooh, he shouldn't be doing that. He's an occultist. He's a spiritual person. He shouldn't be doing that. He shouldn't be thinking that. He's this, he's that. Well, this is my experiment, folks, and it's yours too. And the sooner you can understand that, the sooner you will be on your way in terms of manifesting the reality that you so choose. Because it only is you and your limitations and your fear that would keep you from getting what you obtain. That's how I recognize it in my life. There's no boogeyman. There's no thing. There's no wolf. The only thing keeping me from anything is me. Whether it's me getting my own way, or that's it, actually. That's the whole thing. Drive all blames into one, people. Look that up. It's a Lo Zhang expression. Drive all blames into one. Okay? And another thing. What's up with hummus? Okay? Yeah. So only. Should we eat a vegan diet to obtain spiritual power? I'm going to do like spiritual teachers done me. What do you think? Tell me what you find out. This is about you. And that just... Don't do the experiments. This whole thing is an experiment. If you're watching my channel, if you're watching this video, if you're watching anything I ever do from this point out, understand that, please, all of this is a giant experiment for you to study, for you to practice with, to you to discover things about yourself ultimately. And understanding things about yourself is understanding things about the universe, because yourself is the universe. So, should we eat vegan diet to obtain more spiritual power? If you want to do that experiment, you can. How about that? Don't ask questions like that. Well, I shouldn't say don't ask questions like that. Ask all the questions you want, but that's the response you're going to get, because that is the mindset of not wanting to find out for themselves. You know, like me and a friend were having a conversation about she wanted to do something artistic that she had never done before, use a certain medium. And she was going to post something about, hey, everybody, I haven't used this medium before, blah, blah, blah. What can you say about it, right? I was like, you know, honestly, it's like I feel like the more, honorable isn't the right word, but the more scientific experimenter way of doing that would be to start working with the medium, see what you find out, then maybe be like, hey, everybody, I started working with this, and here's what I got. Anybody else have any things? Because it's like you've explored something that you didn't know first, and then maybe you're talking with people about like, oh yeah, hey, this is some results I got by doing this. This is something I did with this medium. This is something I experimented with, you know, over here. And I just to me, that just is always a better way of going about it, because it's like you're not asking for people to do an experiment for you. And that's something that always gets me when I feel, because I work with people, when I feel people want things done for them. And I am a social worker. I work in a social work capacity, but it's either we do it together or it's not going to happen. I'm not doing things for people. I do things with people. And there's a very energetic difference with those two different things. And lots of times people want you to do things for them, and they don't want to do things with them, or, you know, do them independently. You know, like, hey, here's the info. Now you got to go follow up. You know, I always give people homework in my job. It's not just me just going to be on my hand doing everything, talking to these schools, talking to this, doing that. You got to do something too. You got to find out some information. And yeah, I can find out that information, but it's like you got to show your not worth, but show your devotion, essentially, that, you know, you want this. You want this thing. Because I can't be more dedicated than you in something that you're pursuing. So, yes, let's slay, bitches. So, let's come back to fear of self. So, in addition to the fear of our parents, not wanting to honor them for whatever reason related to how we are perceiving them, we need to eat more honeydew. How about that? We need to recognize when it comes to fear of self, right? Fear of like, oh, my parents were like this. Not only I'm going to become like this, but also I can attract that. You know, mother was a manipulator. Might attract people who manipulate you, in addition to having to deal with the archetype of being the manipulator. So, we're going to root these out. But again, are you conscious of your actions? Because if you are, then that should be no issue. And also, you know, think about it like this. Also, your parents, it's like standing on the shoulders of giants. And you may not think of your parents as giants, but it's like you're still standing on their shoulders. Because even if they, you know, the environment was not a idyllic environment, and that could go all the ways and all the extremes, they still have set you up in a certain way to relate to the world. And again, it may be the lesson of like, this is not what to do. Don't do that. Don't do this. Don't drink like this. Don't treat your partner like this. Don't do this with money. It could be in that way, which those often are the harder lessons, and it's easier for those ones to just carry on, because again, it's an ingrained part of your, you know, your mindset and your ego. Your ego's like, oh, okay, that's how they survive, because ego's always about survival. So it's like, oh, this is how they stayed comfortable, is another way of looking at it. And comfort here just means familiarity, not necessarily like comfort in the sense that like it feels good, because growing up in a chaotic household doesn't necessarily feel good, but it kind of gets normalized and you get used to it, so it becomes comfortable in that regard. Again, going back to that story, the boy is uncomfortable that there wasn't chaos going on in the household, and you created chaos to just be like, oh, whew. Like that was like his cigarette. He was like, oh, whew. goddamn, like, oh, we got some chaos. Okay, now I can relax. Like, woo. And it's fucked up and it's wild to think, but that's literally how it is. And this could be the same thing in our minds. And I feel like in the situation I had this woman recently, maybe the same thing where it's like she just needed to create some drama and some chaos. And I wasn't going to feed into it. I just sort of just vow of silence and just like, okay, peace be with you, peace be with you, you know? So a fear of self can also be kind of a fear of uniqueness, right? It's something I said to my nephew recently. So he started high school. He just moved down to North Carolina. Shout out to NC, you know what I'm saying? Love North Carolina. I've barely been there. I'm like, oh yeah, North Carolina, my kind of state. You just get feelings from certain things. Also Tennessee. I fuck with Tennessee. I'm definitely going to live there. Chattanooga. Got my heart. Chattanooga. So, so he started high school, right? So I reached out to him and said, like, well, you started high school. How'd it go? Just meeting cool people. And he's like, yeah. He was kind of like very quick. He's like, yeah, sorts. I was like, oh, sorts of cool people. Okay. And I said something. I was like, listen. I didn't say listen, but I was like, listen. It's that tone. It's like that listen tone. Like, listen, bitch. No, I didn't call my nephew a bitch. That's rude. So I told him that, he's funny, he's smart, he's he's a good dude, and just not keeping his individuality, right? It's very important. I said that he's just really amazing. And I think that's a important time to really, there's an important test in one's individuality is in high school, right? Because high school is a lot about conformity, right? Especially, a new high school in a new area, may want to conform more. Oh man, down here they're wearing Cam Newton sneakers. Oh man, I gotta get. Mom, can I get some Cam Newton 4s? No, sweetie, you can only wear Jordans. Oh man, everyone's gonna make fun of me. Jordans. Oh man, they're gonna know I'm from New York, right? If that would happen, that'd be hilarious. So, I was just making a point to just be unique and be an individual. I feel like in the environments of high school, it's very important. And that's where you can really find your true friends because, the true friends, they're going to be unique and individual themselves. And you can kind of bond on that, especially if it's something unique and individual, as some unique and individual aspect about themselves that kind of reflects, in terms of what you do. Like, oh, you like this very specific game too, or this very specific anime too. Like, oh, cool. Like, wow, I didn't know anybody knew about this. But, if that person maybe had hid that more, maybe didn't wear the t-shirt, they wore a swoosh on their shirt to conform, maybe that other person would never know about their love for I was trying to think. I was going to say Naruto, but I was going to try to think of another anime. My Hero Academy? That was what I was trying to think of. I think that's the name of it. I got so many heroes backed up. When I'm van lifing in a few years, I think that's going to be 30% of what I do is just watch all these animes. Because I'm so fascinated by animes, and I know once I've just dipped my toenail of a toe in. And I love it. And just there's so many out there that I want to watch. Just got other things on the docket, but I'm out there sleeping in national forests in vehicles. I'd be like, oh, let's pop on some episodes of My Hero Academy out here in the middle of the Arizona desert next to rattlers and cacti. Rattlers and cacti. So the uniqueness, it can become we don't Or I'm gonna be like myself? Or I'm gonna like follow my intuition in terms of the things that I'm gonna pursue? Like, okay. We have this sort of relationship with it. But it's very vital, because, it's the exploration of our consciousness. And especially if we haven't done it before, listen, that's one of the first questions I always ask myself. If I'm like on the fence about something and it's like, oh, I could do this or I could do that. I'm like, well, have I done choice B before? I haven't done choice B before. Choice A, I've done 9,000 times before. Okay, I think we might have to do choice B, because that's the thing, that's the more experimental thing. That's the thing that, even if it's a minor hesitation, procrastination, delay, there's some fear deep down there, because it's like, oh, I haven't done it before. And, sometimes the fear doesn't always come across as like, oh, fear, oh. It could just be like, oh, I'll get to that tomorrow. Oh, I'll do that tomorrow. Oh, I'll get to that on Saturday. Oh, yeah, next month. But it could be the fear of the transformation, which, going full circle in this conversation, goes back to what I was saying about kettlebell. What does fear have to do with kettlebell? My fear of transformation. If I feel that in my life I've been a certain archetype. That's why it's like studying. I started reading this book last night that I've had for a while, called The Mythic Path by Stanley Krippner and I forget the other person. Krippner's done a lot of work in parapsychology, and I forget the other dude. But anyways, it's all about your personal mythology. And so, in looking at one's personal mythology, then you have to look at your personal archetypes. The certain archetypes that either you want to embody, you feel you need to embody, you feel that you already are embodying, all those sorts of things, right? And these archetypes could be the starving artist, right? That's an archetype. Oh, I'm a starving artist, right? That sort of archetype. Oh, I'm the, these are archetypes that are classical archetypes, but they could be archetypes that, hybrid archetypes. Like, the thing I was talking about, the volatile mommy. Like, there's a whole expanded thing on that, and I'll have to do a video on that one of these days. But I have a whole expanded classification for that archetype. Like, I feel like I'm an archetype anthropologist on that one. Like, the newly discovered. It was never discovered before. But this archetype by Paul Gibson was discovered in 2022, and it was the Voltus Mominus. And this archetype changed what we thought about the volatile and the mommy. So, forward and back is the name of my new mixtape. That was nothing. So we have the sphere of uniqueness related to just our individuality, and not, just this fear of transformation, because our uniqueness is tied to our transformation. Because I would say it's difficult, if not impossible, prove me wrong, people, prove me wrong, to be unique without transforming. Because if you're unique, then it's like I would say it's like you're always maintaining yourself out of your comfort zone, right? You're always pursuing things that are new, that challenge you, and that's, push you forward in a direction that kind of further puts you out of your comfort zone. And that sort of pattern and cycle is a powerful one, because then it's like you can get to a place where you can create beautiful things. And what are we in this world than being creators? We are creating our reality right now. This holographic universe. Shout out to Michael Talbot. Y'all better recognize. If I had the book right next to me, I'd pick it up. Holographic universe. You better learn yourself about the holographic universe. Great book. Anyways, so we have the sphere of our uniqueness, and then we reject the transformation. It's easier. This is a true statement, folks. It's easier to follow conformity, right? If everyone's wearing green shirts, well, it's like, oh, that's easy. I know what to wear tomorrow. Just wear a green shirt. That's what people are doing. But if you're like, you know what, everyone's wearing green shirts, I'm wearing a blue shirt. Oh, and people might be like, oh, you're wearing a green shirt? Oh, weirdo. That's what it is. His fear of being the outcast is another fear we can talk about. It's another important fear we need to talk about, because that's one that is particularly relevant for me, because, you know, lots of, I would argue, when I've done this root chakra muladhara work, has been my peer relationships, my friendships, not necessarily my parental ones, not necessarily related to authority figures, not necessarily related to anything else, but my peer relationships are something that I feel like a lot of time I was really, I was doing a lot so I wouldn't feel that I was an outcast of groups and social settings, whether I was legitimately going to be one or not. You know, just the fear in my mind of, like, oh, the group has rejected me. You know, again, whether it was mind created and generated or if it was a legitimate thing. And it's funny because it's like the more I kind of process this, the more I realize it's like, wow, then I would have this funny habit of doing these things that would put my acceptance in the group at risk, because I would do something like, you know, just not that, you know, if the group found out, they'd be like, what? Why did you do that? And, you know, I think that was just a certain pattern I was fulfilling, where it's like, I don't know, maybe I wanted to feel rejected from the group. Maybe I wanted to feel that fear and that sting. And, you know, I'd always put that at risk. And then I would just overcompensate, but like, oh, okay, well, I got to do all this stuff to overcompensate to be part of the in-group and that sort of thing, and keep my status and keep that fear at bay. So this fear of uniqueness can run into challenge that, because conformity in the group can challenge with uniqueness in the group. And depending on what group you're in, depending on what's going on, are they a pro-uniqueness group? This is the issue with groups. They can turn very anti-uniqueness and pro-conformity very quickly, very suddenly. And before you know it, like, we gotta wear bright orange hoodies now? I don't remember this in the meeting. Oh, it was a unilateral decision by the Supreme Chancellor. Ooh, Supreme Chancellor. That never sounds good. Name a time when someone is the Supreme Chancellor and it's like, oh, that's cool. Hope they get that farm bill. Hope they take care of that farm bill, because, you know, I'm sure a Supreme Chancellor, it's like, you know, all the paperwork, right? Am I right, folks? That Supreme Chancellor paperwork? So, furthermore, just being in a place where you can unleash your fear of your uniqueness is very vital. And also, we're going to wrap this up because I am hungry. And we have other things we got to do on the docket. Other podcasts, other videos to do. And so, lastly, fear of change and fear of healing, which is kind of connected to the fear of uniqueness, the fear of parents, and fear of transformation. But, if we've been a certain way, if our mind's been a certain way, if our experience has been a certain way, if we relate to the world a certain way, there's going to be something in our mind that's going to be like, yeah, this is as good as it gets. Yeah, I'm always going to have these sorts of partners. Yeah, I'm always going to be overweight. You know, there's always going to be these voices that are like, nah, this is who you are. You cannot change. You want to change? Oh, get that idea out of your minds. What do you think this is? What do you think this is? Things that change? It's not. So stop thinking about that. You know, there's always that sort of deep down mindset, especially if we're making a radical change, right? This is why, you know, making huge jumps in our consciousness are best done over longer periods of time. So it's not like a complete shock to our system, you know, where it's like we were eating cheeseburgers every day for 5 years and we're eating spinach. Our system would be like, what? What are you doing? We were just having cheeseburgers and everything was cool, and now we're eating spinach. We don't know about this. I know this might be better and such, but yeah, what's happening here? Let's say you can't get through it, but it could be a shock to the system. Most importantly, it'd be a shock to your consciousness. Just that transition. Just me dealing with eating fruit all the time. That's now I'm hitting the struggle phase. Now I'm in struggle land with dealing with it. Not too much, but enough where it's like I'm aware of it. I'm aware of it now, and I'm dealing with it. And it's teaching myself about foods I really love, foods I enjoy eating, my relationship with food, how all that stuff is connected, my fears, my cravings, my vulnerabilities, all those fun things I'm learning by just eating fruit. And, this is sometimes why distance for things in our life is important, whether it's distance from a relationship, distance from food, distance from a toxic family, a toxic person, because it can give us a certain clarity because we're not getting all this information from them at once, right? If someone's just talking to you, you're trying to think about them, but they just keep talking to you, it's hard to think about them, objectively, I would say, because they're just talking to you the whole time. But if you can get away from their talking and you can just sit and think about like, is that the person I want to spend, my life with? And you can reflect and you can really think about various things at various times and various experiences and various feelings you have for this person. And you can kind of be like, okay, you kind of get a wider view of the situation than when you're continuing to get data. That's where it becomes difficult. So, kind of zooming out on stuff is very helpful. And so, related to change, just getting stuck in the place of, this is all I'm ever going to be. And again, going back to the thing with our parents, it's like, well, my parents were alcoholics, this is all I'm going to be. Right? Getting stuck in that mindset. When it's like, again, don't you have your own choices? Aren't you in control of your own mind? Those are the questions. Aren't you in control of your feelings? If you aren't, then you need to work on those things, meditate, get the reins on those horses much better because, then you will carry out the same bullshit your parents have done, especially if you raise kids, because it's like you haven't, it's like if we're going to use a computer example, then it's like, well, I don't want to use this buggy software, this outdated software, as I grow up as an adult or when I raise a family. Well, then update your software. That's it. Update your software. If you don't like the software you've been given from your parents, then you need to do things to update it. And a great way of updating these things is psychedelics, is meditation first and foremost, is many different things. Many different things. But definitely things like ayahuascas of the world, the San Pedros of the world, the psilocybins of the world are very helpful and kind of, lots of times healing those psychic wounds. Healing those deep psychic wounds, getting some release, maybe crying something out, and going from there. So, don't be afraid of your fear, folks. Don't be afraid of your fear, folks. What'd Best say? What does Best say? Best says, I hold a knife, and I also have drums, and also I'm like 2 feet tall, and I'm a badass, because I got a knife. That's what Best said, and he's a party animal. Look at him. That dude at party animal. Party animal. You don't think he's a party animal? Look at him. He comes to the party with a knife and drums. And also he's like a fertility guy too. So, he's got everything on lock. He's got knives, got drums. He got a nice big cock. All the things. So in conclusion, folks, because we're at 90 minutes. As much as I want to keep sitting here, I don't. So I'm going to wrap this up. So, reevaluate your life in terms of fears. Because I guarantee you're a lot more afraid than you really think you are. I don't care if you jumped out of an airplane. That's one type of fear. You have a deep conversation with your partner and be vulnerable and be truthful and tell her all the skeletons in your closet. Like, oh, I lost. I was gonna do a whole thing, but I coughed and it knocked me off by a train of thought and verbal patterns. So, again, honor your parents, right? Even if it's like, yo, I came from y'all, woo, and that's it. That's all you need to do. Or you can decide what you need to do. Don't ask me questions either. You figure it out. Are you not the experimenter? Nextly, honor and don't be afraid of yourself. Nextly. That's not a word, I don't think. Nextly. Lee next. Your fear of uniqueness, you gotta get over that. You're unique, whatever the fuck you are. So, you know what that means? You gotta let that out and be the uniqueness that you already are. Woo! That made my back feel good there, sweetie. Mon chers. And lastly, fear of transformation. I think that's one of the biggest ones. You know, to paraphrase a book about Kundalini Tantra, you know, there's danger with everything. And I think that sometimes goes with the fear of transformation. Because we're used to a certain way of living. We think this is the only, well, it's like, well, I've never lived like that before. It could be like, you know, and again, this is a book about doing Kundalini and Kundalini yoga and things like that. It's not about like, you know, going to space. You know, it's about doing yoga and shit, right? For the purpose of raising one's Kundalini. Excuse me. And the writer made a point about like, yeah, it's dangerous. But, you know, if you follow the exercises and don't get wild and skip around, you'll be fine. And anybody who's done anything, right, any sort of explorer, adventurer, they've gone into the unknown, and that's it. And I just thought about like, man, yeah, there's a lot of explorers that you never heard of or never heard from again. It was just like, yeah, Bill Witherson went into the woods to explore the Pacific Northwest. That was it. No one heard from him again. You know, but there are ones who came out and were like, yo, there was this there was that there was this wildflower that was pretty cool. Here, I sketched it. You know? But, you know, there's inherent risk. And the point the author makes at the end that stuck with me since is that, well, if you don't want to risk exploring and adventuring, you might as well eat, be merry, and die unenlightened. And I was like, ooh, man, that die unenlightened like just hit hard. And I was like, man, die unenlightened? Like, ooh, like it was probably my ego, but goddamn, like I felt that. And I feel like that ties into our fear of change, is that we have, for most of our lives, been just eating, being merry, and just doing unenlightened things, unspiritual, unocculty things, and actually working our own best interests in those areas and actually creating more of a muck of our lives by just not understanding how these certain things in the laboratory work, which is an analogy I use now, where it's like when you're growing up and you're younger, you're presented with all these experiments and you don't even know how to use a Bunsen burner, use a test tube, and you're figuring that out. And as you get older, then you get a grasp on it, but occult science is really where it's like, oh, okay, this is how I make a rock. You know what I'm saying? This is how I make a cake, right? Based on the elemental principles and the, the different parts of the science and manifestation. You know, you start to learn how to use the test tubes, the graduated cylinders, the thermometers, the Bunsen burners, and do experiments. And like, oh, this is what I came up with. Oh, wow, great. Well, next time I want to get this rock to be purple. And then you go back to the lab and you do some things, and ooh, so close. Burgundy. That's not very close to purple, but whatever. We'll go back to the lab. So this fear of change is connected to just our fear of just, I don't know how to best, just, we're used to being lower versions of ourselves, actually. Here it is. We're used to being a lower more degraded version of ourselves. And when opportunities present themselves where it's like, hey, actually, you can sign up to be this other version of yourself, you know? It's like, yeah, this version has actually been calling you too, calling to you as well, and you feel intrigued by it, and you feel kind of like, yeah, this is the way I need to go. But we're used to a certain lifestyle, and this is the fear, and this is, again, bringing it back full circle. This is why before I did this video, I did 8 rounds of Tabata and kettlebell, because that was me overcoming my fucking fear of transformation, folks. So anyways, always a pleasure. Be well. Keep overcoming fear. Keep smiling at fear. Keep just overcoming and just challenging yourself. You know, there's a quote, have it up. If it does not challenge you, it won't change you. Fred Delauer, I believe. Delauer, I believe. Or Dubois. So yeah, keep doing those things that challenge you, because I'm sure there's some deep-seated fear if it is challenge you. Okay, goodbye.